Hi everybody, Laura here for Simon Says Stamp. Thank you so much for joining me today. I've got a fun project to share with you featuring the Layered Pixie Flowers layering stencil set. Just came out in the latest Out of This World release, and it is a large stencil set, and you can see on the back of the packaging, I love how it shows a little bit what it should look like. There are 3 stencils, and they are sized great for like a slim line, a mini slim line. I'm going to just be creating a standard A2 size card. And there's also a die, one single die that is the shape of one single flower if you wanted to die cut that out. So I'm going to start with a large panel of white cardstock. Just I don't know why, because I'm going to trim it down. Didn't really need to have such a big one, but at first I wasn't exactly sure how big of a card I was going to make. Okay, so I don't think the stencils are numbered, but I'm going to start with this one here, and I'm using the little small blender brushes and some celery ink. I'm going to be using all Pawsitively saturated inks for this project, and I'll have all the colors and the supplies that I use listed in the description box if you're watching on YouTube. So the thing I love about using this small blender brush is you don't really have to do too much masking because it allows you to get those leaves green without getting into that. Now, if you wanted to do this whole thing, like on the back of the packaging, it shows this whole thing all green. So you would go over this whole entire stencil with green ink. But I wanted to make that little circle part a color, kind of make it part of the bloom. That's the versatility of these stencils. You can mask and you can do all sorts of different things to customize it to your heart's content. So there I went with celery on the leaves and the stem, and now I'm coming in, putting color on that circular part. I am using this is just scrap little paper that I use for ink blending, and I'm masking off the leaves so that I could keep the circular part its own color. So I'm going in first with Peony. Peony is one of my favorite colors. I did have somebody reach out to me just the other day and asked, they wanted to buy some Pawsitively saturated inks, but they didn't have the budget to buy all the colors, so they wanted to know my go-to colors, and it was easy. Peony was first on the list. I do have my go-to colors that I reach for time and time again, my trusty rainbow sherbety colors. But then there are the times when, each one of these, like for example, this one here, grapefruit, they all are trios. So there's the lighter shade and the darker shade. And here's citrine, and we're back again with peony. So every color comes from a family of 3, a light, medium, and dark shade. Do you need to buy all? No. It's nice to have for certain projects when you want to layer, but if the budget doesn't allow, you definitely can get by with one shade out of each family. You know what I mean? If you want to start slow. That's how I did when I started buying Copic markers. I couldn't afford to buy all of them, so I used to buy 3 at a time. And that's how I built my collection. Okay, we're moving on to the next stencil, and this is just more detail with the leaves. So this time I'm going in with Dublin, and it's kind of a very soft aqua/green color, but I'm using a small aqua blender brush. So this blender brush that I'm using has been used over and over with definitely aqua color. So mixing that in with the Dublin is going to give you, maybe not a true Dublin color, but I'm okay with that. I just wanted that slight aqua to overlap with the celery that I had before. And you'll see when I lift this up, the combination of the Dublin and the celery is gorgeous. I love those two. And it's a little bit unexpected. It's a little bit delicious. Okay. And I'm going light. I'm trying not to go too heavy handed because I want it to be a little bit translucent. So you do see the celery underneath it. Look at that. It's so pretty and so easy. Okay. The third stencil, and there's only 3. And this one gives you a little more detail with the blooms. Okay, so here we are now. Rose is the darkest shade in the family with the peony. So I pulled it out. So like in this occasion, it really comes in handy to have that rose. If you didn't have rose, you could use peony again. Just go a little heavier handed to make it darker and more intense. You can get around it if you don't have the colors, but occasionally it is nice to have these. So here we are. This one was blush, so the darker shade is pucker. And I should have showed it. I've showed it before, but I have all my inks swatched out. So I always pull out that swatch chart for jobs like this when I want to know what's the darkest shade in that family, because I need it for this particular project. We're back again with rose. Now I will say when you're working with the dark intense color shades. You got to be careful because they are juicy. They're not only intense, they're juicy. So you got to be careful. You don't want any of that ink getting puddled up underneath your stencil. So you can't overdo it. You got to do it just the right amount. Okay, we're on the last one, which is the darker shade of grapefruit, Mandarin. Lift that up and ooh la la. I'm loving it. Now you can see there's a lot of extra white space, but I'm going to trim this down to 3.5 inches wide by 4 3/4 inches tall, which is kind of a lot of times the panel size I like to do. And it looks great on a white card base. It gives you a nice little border around the edge. I put some foam tape behind it because dimension is life. Moving on to a sentiment, pulling out an oldie but a goodie. I have a bin, and it's completely dedicated to Kathy Zilski word sentiments. This one's the Hi There by Kathy Zilski. I love her word dies. I've got the hugs, the hello, thank you, let's celebrate, send wine. This one's Hi There. I got love ya. I love her clean, like never go out of style font. So I did the word die out of matte gold. I did 3 more out of white, which I'm stacking up here. And then the backer shadow out of vellum. And I have done this a lot. And I just love the look of it. When you have a really colorful card, I like to do a matte gold sentiment on vellum. It just seems to give it a little class, but it doesn't compete, you know. Anyhow, so I'm stacking up these 3 white ones. I'm using Barely Arts glue, and then I'll top it off with that matte gold Hi There. You could also use a lot of times I've been using the micro dot adhesive sheets. Those are super handy dandy when you're stacking up die cuts, but I had my glue right there and I was in the zone, and so I just used the glue. You can glue it. A lot of times back in the day, I used to use spray adhesive, and that's handy too. There's a lot of different ways you can stack it up. And then now don't forget the tittle. That is the dot on the eye. We're going to stack up that tittle, because you got to stack it. Speaking of tittle, I learned another new word the other day. I was watching Jimmy Fallon, of all shows, and they were talking about the glob of toothpaste that you put on your toothbrush. You know when you put just a little bit of toothpaste on your toothbrush? You know what that glob of toothpaste is called? Does anyone know? It's called a nurdle. When I heard that, I'm like, okay, I got to share that in a video because it kind of reminds me of tittle. And you're never going to forget it now. Nurdle. You've got the tittle and the nurdle. Next time you go to brush your teeth, you're going to be, look at that little nurdle sitting on my toothbrush. Learned that from Laura Fedora. The nurdle. We've got the tittle and the nurdle. And I put a little sliver of foam tape behind because I like to pop it up. It really shows off that translucency of the vellum. Centering that right in there. And then for embellishment, I'm pulling out a couple of sequin mixes that also just came out in the Out of This World release. We have the green Meadows and the yellow Sunsets sequin mixes. What I didn't know is that in the yellow Sunsets, there's not only sequins and confetti, but there's also little gems. If you can see, the tiniest ones are little gemstones. And I was pleasantly delighted about that. Okay, just so you know, the sequin mix has little gems in it. And there you have the finished card featuring the Layered Pixie Flowers stencil set and the Kathy Zilski Hi There. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.